Thank you very much for joining us, Paul, to talk about the Charter and Bylaws Committee and what you've got coming up on the fall town warrant. I thought it would help just a little bit. What we typically do is do very brief introductions of each of us on the call, so you get a sense of who's here, and particularly for those of us that are town meeting members, fairly high percentage, I believe. Martin, you want to start with yourself?
Yes, I'm Martin. I'm a town meeting member for many 20 plus years.
Great. Sarah?
Ditto.
Yep. And I am not a town meeting member, but I live with one, and that's almost the same. So, Carol?
Yeah, good morning. I'm a town meeting member too, Carol Berkowitz.
Great. Pat?
Good morning. Pat Conaway, Keep Natick Beautiful.
In town meeting member, I believe, right?
Yes. Once was a town meeting.
Former. Okay, great. Bill?
Hi, Bill Ramage, former town meeting member and interested in all things town meeting.
Great. Cindy?
Cindy Bates. I moved to Natick Center 4 years ago, and I just like to know what's going on.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Kathleen?
Hi, Paul. I'm Kathleen Donovan. I am not a town meeting member, but I am a very interested town resident.
Thank you. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Gentry, also not a town meeting member, but yeah, I am interested as well in what's going on in Natick and trying to get more informed.
Thanks, Chris. Brindley?
Good morning, Brindley Vickers. I am a town meeting member and have been very interested in town politics for 20 years. Thank you for being.
Thanks, Brindley. Donna?
Donna McKenzie. As you can hear, I'm a little bit, have a horrible cold, no COVID, no flu though. I'm a town meeting member and I'm an associate member of the Charter Bylaw Review Committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Paul? Joseph, that is.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm in the car. So Paul Joseph, former town meeting member, current select board member.
Thanks, Paul. And Carrie? You're on mute, Carrie, at the moment. There you go.
The town meeting member here, Carrie Butfield, Precinct 8. Look forward to hearing what you have to say, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Okay. We may have a couple others filter in, but I'll turn the floor over to you, Paul. I don't know if you have screens to share or not. You're welcome to do that. And your choice as to whether you want folks to hold questions towards the end or just interrupt as we go along. So.
How about if I do this? How about if I just give a, kind of like an overview or a summary, and then open it up for, for questions, and also make an announcement. The Charter and Bylaw Review Committee is having an open forum this Thursday, and it's on Zoom. So, and it's also in person. So, Donna McKenzie has been taking the lead in setting that up. And if I have to leave by 10 and Donna can stay on, she can answer questions about the logistics. But that's a posted meeting. So it will be in the school committee meeting room this Thursday. I believe it's 7 o'clock. And it's also going to be accessible by Zoom. The moderator has agreed to allow his Zoom to be used so that we don't sometimes we get crosstalk on the one from that the town gives out to different committees. So because lots of people use it. So does that sound like an okay approach, Doug?
Yeah, it does. I see Brindley's got her hand up. Just real quick, Brindley.
Yes, the last I heard that the meeting was on Wednesday. So it's not Wednesday upstairs in the school committee room. It's Thursday. I just want to reconfirm that before we start, because at the school committee they had said Wednesday, so I just wanted to make sure that I'm.
I thought it was Wednesday
I
as well.
thought Wednesday as well.
It is Wednesday.
You're correct. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Okay. My mistake.
No problem. And it's upstairs on the third floor at Town Hall.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
So the couple things there are. two articles on. One's the committee report and an extension. The extension is so that we can continue looking at the bylaws, which hadn't been updated in several years, and we finally got the updated copies. The clerk went through over the course of the summer and did, I think, about 5 or 7 years worth of updating. And so we got those in like the third week of August. We haven't really had a chance to go through all of the bylaws. So that's one article that's up. Then we have one that actually is looking to make a couple of very discrete focus changes on the bylaws with respect to proceedings at town meeting. So one of the first ones that we'll be looking for under the bylaws is to shorten the notice period for calling a special town meeting. We have a 28-day notice period, so the select board calls it, and then the meeting can't occur until 28 days have elapsed. The general laws are 14 days. So specials, when they're well run, before they're called, people know exactly what's going on the warrant, so you don't need 28 days or even 14 days to prepare the text. You just need 14 days to under state law to get notice out to people. So it gets a faster response time for calling a special town meeting. We've also looking to reform in both the charter and the bylaws the method of notifying the public, and we have the legacy language that dates from the era where print media, particularly newspapers, dominated the method of communication. And the language says that notices for town meetings or special town meetings, as an example, need to be published in a newspaper of local circulation. And it's arguable whether or not we even have that. So we have an expanded definition that includes any number of factors in isolation or in combination. Social media, DPW signage, like they notify of elections with those, the police boards that have the flashing sign, town website, etc., to have a more reliable method of reasonably reaching the people to let them know. So that's one of the other things that we're looking to do under the bylaws. And then the other one that we thought really needed to be tackled was this 3 hands rule for that prevents moving the question at town meeting. So we're actually proposing to delete that and substitute a different standard that is basically at the discretion of the moderator and then in accordance with town meeting time. We tried to work with a number of formulas to approach that. But the reason we settled on the language that we did is in proposing it, and I think that one's actually been through the finance committee. The reason we settled on the language that we did on moving the question is under town meeting time. If someone is a recognized speaker and makes the motion and there's a second, the meeting needs to proceed immediately to move the question, right? It has to vote. So that can happen early, middle, or late in the consideration of a particular question under a warrant article. And several years ago, we actually had someone who was routinely moving the question or attempting to move the question as soon as the motion was made. So early is, having the question called too early and meaning have to waste time voting is just almost as bad as the meeting have to go on and on and on because 3 or more people want to say the same thing that's already been said 2 or 3 times. So we're looking to reform the motion to question so that the meeting can be in a little bit more control of its destiny. And then there's also some technical cleanup on the order of or the precedence of motions chart. And that's really the summary of the bylaws. So if I could pivot to an overview of what we're proposing relative to the charter, the article for the charter is a home rule petition for a special act to amend the charter. We were advised by special counsel kind of like throughout this process, and their special counsels told us 2 things. One is when you have a number of fixes that you want to make in a charter, it's better to do them by special act so that they're all consolidated into one, as opposed to multiple votes of town meeting by 2/3 that then have to go to, to the voters. Special act is just a different tool to amend, to amend the charter. But more importantly, there are a couple of things that, that are that one cannot do by the familiar 2/3 vote of town meeting and subsequent ratification by the voters. You cannot change the manner of election, the term, or the method of appointment of town meeting members or your town manager. You just can't touch that by the familiar 2/3 process. And you also can't touch the method of election for your select board. That you cannot touch, or the composition of your select board. You also can't touch the composition of your representative town meeting. Can't do that by the familiar 2/3 approach. So a couple of things that we thought we needed to do, was we worked with special counsel and then with town council to fashion the motions underneath warrant article 25. Where the first motion, it will be a main motion for the framework of a special act. That motion the moderator will do a better job explaining this than I do, but that motion will then, hopefully be made and seconded. And then it will be subject to any series of amendments, which are additions to the special act, things that town meeting will vote on individually and discreetly and say, yes, we do, or no, we don't want to make this change. If they move a particular amendment to have it inserted in the framework, it will become part of the special act. If town meeting says, no, we don't want that one, then that particular amendment won't become part of the special act. So inside of that framework, we have any number of things that we're looking to propose. One of which is kind of across the board, change the term town administrator to town manager. We've been advised that we actually have a town manager, but we just call that person town administrator. Town manager, according to legal counsel, is anyone who gets to appoint one other person or more and gets to prepare the budget. So we've actually got a town manager that we call town administrator. And that, according to counsel, actually puts you down a rung in the consideration of applicants to fill that job, because town managers are generally viewed as being better jobs than administrators. So that's a kind of we decided that it would be good to recommend to town meeting that across the board we just change the title to be what it actually is. Then we went into Article 2 of the charter, where we have provisions dealing with the appointment of town meeting members and then the holding of caucuses to fill vacancies. And those appointments and those caucuses under the current language of the charter are run by the town clerk. So the town clerk makes the appointments, the town clerk runs the caucuses. And that all worked fine when the clerk was an elected, official, independent of anyone, in the administration. With an appointed clerk, we thought it would be good to have that put under the overall auspices of the moderator, who can supervise that, and with the clerk still involved. And that actually is a change to the method of appointment and filling vacancies, and to the method of election inside of a caucus. Therefore, you have to use the special act to fix it. You can't do it you can't do it by the the 2/3 approach. So that's one thing that we're looking to do. The other thing we're looking to do is we spent a lot of time analyzing town meeting and whether or not we should shrink the number of seats. And the article provides for that ability, but we studied the attendance at town meeting and concluded that's probably not a good idea, because the vacancy tends to be concentrated in precinct 1. And if you are going to reduce the size of town meeting, which is currently 180, because you have 10 precincts and you have people elected every year, so in serving for 3-year terms, you're probably going to move down by precinct 3 at a time. So that means you would move across 10 precincts, you'd move down 30, from 180 to 150, from 150 to 120, from 120 to 90, et cetera. And that if you move, we've also found that town meeting is regularly supported by approximately 140 people who show up. very few people, like maybe 50, 55, make every meeting. When we look at the attendance at town meeting members and we see maybe 120 people there, it's not always the same 120 people during the course of any one given town meeting. There are some people who can't make a particular meeting but come to the next, and some who went to the first one can't make the next one. So it actually, the participation rate's actually higher than the 120 would imply. And so we thought, we didn't want to lower it down to 120. We looked at the 150 and said, that's not going to solve the vacancy issue in precinct 1, because all it would do is eliminate 3 vacancies when you've got, maybe, 15 of them. So one thing we did do though is say, why have the quorum hardwired at 91? Because that means that when you have a chronic vacancy in a place like precinct 1, you actually need to have a majority of those members of precinct 1 kind of being contributing to your quorum. They count towards the the quorum, 91 being 50% of the 180 plus 1. So what the proposal is to change it to a majority of the 180 members minus the vacancies. So if there are vacancies, that would mean that the quorum would generally probably be lower around 82, 83, depending upon the issue inside of precinct 1. And then the other thing that we've done under, I just want to double check my notes. The other thing that we're looking to do is to kind of, because we're looking to streamline town meeting, we currently have language in our charter that says any multiple member body, regardless of how created or configured, can put an article on the warrant. And the technical definition of a multiple member body includes subcommittees of any board or committee. It also includes any study committee. So a planning board study committee, a select board study committee, a school board study committee school committee study committee, anybody's study committee that goes to study something is supposed to report back to the board, can actually stick stuff on the warrant. And that's actually happened in the past. And usually those articles chew up time and they end up being referred because they never went back to their study sponsor, for, discussion and action before hitting town meeting. And we're looking to, say that, if you're going to be in multiple member body to sponsor a warrant article as a multiple member body, you need to be something that got created in statute, in the charter, in the bylaws, or by a vote of town meeting. So, and I think that's the other thing we're looking to do under Article 2 of the charter is reform this thing that requires every town agency, which means every department, to have a representative of that department sit at every session of town meeting. We're actually looking to change that to have the moderator be able to schedule it, and for the moderator to basically have their own rule or procedure about contacting people. So if something, let's say there are a number of zoning articles that are up, the fire chief need not attend. But if there's a question that came up that can only be answered by the fire chief, the moderator would have a method of contacting either by text or by phone the chief to get that answer to then report to the to the meeting. So we're trying to make it such that people who work for the town and have to be at work at 8 a.m. don't have to be at town meeting until 10 o'clock at night and then drive an hour home and then get up at 5:30 in the morning to leave their house by 7 in order to be at work by 8. So we're looking to to reform that. Under Article 3 of the charter, which deals with all of the townwide elected officers, we spent a lot of time looking at alternatives to a preliminary election. And we could eliminate them outright, but then that creates its own set of problems, where you could get someone with not even anywhere close to a majority elected to something that is then serving for a 3-year term. We decided that we would want to make a push towards ranked choice voting, but we were cautioned by legal counsel that that could cause the special act to slow down, because the report that we have is that there are people on Beacon Hill who don't like ranked choice voting. because they think that it could ultimately be, used in the instance where they run for, for their particular office. So what we actually did was to say, we know that the state's looking at it, and that the state is, if the word is that if they do anything, they're likely to make it a local option. So what we did is at the very end of the paragraphs on preliminary elections, inserted a clause that says all of this stuff on preliminary elections shall not apply whenever ranked choice voting becomes effective in the town of Natick. And the word effective is chosen deliberately because if the state gives us a local option, that option doesn't make it effective. It would be the decision of the town to adopt that would then make it effective. So those are the things that we're looking to do under Article 3 of the Charter. In addition, we've got a modest one on having the Recreation and Parks Commission also advise the Select Board. Currently, they advise only the town administrator, and the Select Board effectively is supposed to function at the policy level as the Parks Commissioners, and they should also be getting advice relative to how they would set those policies. We've stuck an appointment power of the moderator into the charter. Stuck's probably not the right word, but we think it's necessary or advisable to create a position of deputy moderator. So historically, the town clerk, the elected town clerk, has presided over a town meeting in the absence of the moderator. When the town changed from an elected clerk to an appointed clerk, that duty or that power of the clerk to moderate the town meeting in the absence of the moderator was specifically withheld from the appointed clerk. So at the moment, we have no one who can preside over a town meeting in the absence or conflict of or inability of the moderator. We thought about making it an elected position for a deputy. We decided that it was best that the moderator and a deputy would have to work together. So the contemplated charter change is to create a deputy moderator position that's appointed by the moderator to serve for whatever the remainder of the moderator's term is, not to outlast the moderator. That's it on Article 3 of the Charter. Inside of Article 4, we actually looked at something and went over it several times. And it deals with the removal and suspension provisions of the town administrator. We went back to check the original charter that was when it was written. That language had a 3-person select board and a 2/3 majority of that 3-person board could remove or suspend the town administrator. 2/3 of 3 is also majority. They just didn't write it as a majority. They wrote it as 2/3. By special act in the mid-90s, we went from a 3-person select board to a 5-person select board, and that meant that the 2/3, which used to be majority, jumped to 4/5. Then we also have a provision in the current charter that requires 100% attendance of the select board in order to discipline the town administrator, to remove or to suspend, meaning that any one member can just say, I'm not coming, or walk out of the meeting, and the meeting has to stop. So we have a proposal to take it back to the original text and intent of the charter as majority, but with required notice to all members of the select board with a reasonable opportunity to attend. And this all takes place in the context of a very important paragraph in the charter that says, after the probationary period, a town administrator cannot be removed or suspended unless for any number of specified good causes, and then only after 30 days have elapsed and they have an opportunity for a hearing. The language of all of the good causes is actually tougher language than it is for the any school district in the Commonwealth to remove a teacher with professional status. So it's actually a very important hurdle. You can't just do it because can't just get rid of a town administrator if you don't like them. If you could try and do it, but then you can end up being sued and lose. So that provision is still there. That has to be for basically illegal conduct, good cause, conduct unbecoming the office, gross inefficiency, things of that nature. And that part of this is to empower the select board. So we have that as an item that we're looking to we've recommended a change on. And we've also added language inside of the select board powers and duties and eliminated some language. We're making it clear that the policy of the authority of the Board of Selectmen with regard to the town agencies that serve underneath it and the people that it appoints includes, but is not limited to, parks, public works, public roads, water, sewer, police, fire, finance, treasury, and accounting functions. Those words don't exist in the charter. They're not specifically called out. And we're looking to get rid of the language that says the select board can only act through broad policy guidelines. Tech council's advised us that that's the strangest provision they've ever seen, and they don't think it's anywhere else in the Commonwealth. It's like your select board is going to be your executive agency head, and it's going to be empowered to make policies. But then you pull it up. The original charter pulls it back and says no, broad guidelines. So we're looking to take the broad guidelines limitation out. One of the other things that we're looking to do is to change all of the gender specific language in the charter. All of the town administrator's job description is actually written with 19 separate numbered sections that all begin he shall, and then there are follow-on paragraphs, the duties of his office, with the people that that report to him, right? So we're cleaning all of that that stuff up, and that's an important thing that happens, that would happen inside of not only Article 4 of the charter, but believe it or not, also in Article 6, where we just changed the charter to have an appointed town clerk who shall be appointed by the town administrator and shall report to him. Right. So it's like we just did this like a year ago. We missed, and everybody kind of missed that. So we're looking to change that. There is also some gender specific language inside of Article 5 on fiscal procedures. We're looking to fix that as well. There are no other substantive changes to the powers and duties part of Article 4 for the town administrator, or and there are no substantive changes in the fiscal procedures. There is one change, however, that the select board had indicated that it would like to have approval authority over the major appointments made by the town administrator. So those, that's particularly the treasurer collector, the treasurer, the collector. Those are kind of the assistant treasurer collector, etc. The town clerk. The select board wants to make sure it has the approval authority over those. The current charter is written with this kind of almost vague language that says the treasurer collector and the town clerk are subject to confirmation by the select board. And the confirmation could be read as, no, that's a confirming vote. It could also be read differently, that says it's confirmation of, thanks, we got your letter that says you were just appointed so-and-so, right? We could be confirming receipt or confirming the actual, appointment. And we have conflicting language in the current charter that says all appointments of the town administrator become effective within 15 days, unless they are earlier vetoed by the select board. So what that means is, nothing is really, and the current charter is really subject to an affirmative, vote approval. So we modified that clause with regard to some of these major appointments inside of the charter. Inside of Article 6 of the charter, which is administrative organization, there are two methods of reorganizing the town. One is by bylaw and the other is by administrative code. we had a request from the select board and also from the town administrator to allow the town administrator to make certain other, more focused reorganization, changes without having to go to town meeting. And perhaps an interesting example of this is years ago, it might have been 20 years ago, after we went to pay as you throw, and the volume of trash fell by about 30% to a third. We didn't need to pick up trash 5 days a week, right? 20% of the trash got picked up every Monday through Friday, 20% each day. We didn't need that, and they cut the schedule to 4 days for picking up trash. 80% of the prior schedule, and that was more than adequate, but that freed up the entire DPW sanitation department for 1 day a week. And the then town administrator said, let's put them into the DPW highway division so they can work together. That never really went through a town meeting vote, at least not as I recall. Smart move, right? But they're highly related, sub-departments within, DPW. And the proposal is to add a new subsection inside of Article 6 of the charter that allows the town administrator to make those types of focused, changes that they don't go too far, and the approval requirement there is that there has to be 14 days public notice, and then it has to be approved by the select board. So it's like you're going to abolish a town agency that's providing a service, right? Or you're going to merge it in with something else. Everybody takes a look at that. That isn't done by the administrator with a stroke of a pen, as contrasted to changing one position like a junior planner to a senior planner, which is down at the individual planner, at the individual position level, which doesn't have to go through that select board approval process. The town administrator already does that, but it's arguable where the authority to do those types of position modifications exist. I did mention one other thing, backing up. We had a request that the personnel board become advisory to the town administrator. We have a provision in the charter that says the town administrator shall, in conjunction with a personnel board created by bylaw, be entrusted with the administration of the entire personnel system. That's in the original charter. We still have it. And it actually means, when you read it, that it says everything that the town administrator does has to be done joined with this personnel board. It was written in an era when we didn't have a personnel department, we didn't have HR people, etc. And some of what the administrator has to do is, give people a tough performance review, right? So that's the request was to make the personnel board advisory, and that's also one of the elements in the looking to change in the charter. In Article 6 of the charter, we have extensive provisions, and Section 6.3 and 6.4, and a whole number of subsections that deal with the powers, duties, qualifications, education, and experience of the town comptroller, the assistant comptroller, the treasurer collector, the treasurer, and the collector. And all of that stuff belongs in a bylaw. How and why it ever got baked into the charter in terms of how many years experience you need to have, whether or not you need a college degree. So that stuff needs to be all in a bylaw. So we're proposing that all that stuff actually be deleted, and so that it can be moved down to a bylaw, but with a savings clause that the positions actually continue until the bylaw is adopted. And we're looking then to have Article 6, which is the administrative organization of the town, be where the select board and the administrator make a whole bunch of appointments, so that you can actually look them all up where you're talking about the individuals, not boards and committees. You're talking about individuals who actually work for the town. You can see it inside of the administrative organization sections of Article 6. Those things that are appointed by the select board, those things are appointed by the administrator, and those appointments of the administrator that require the approval of the select board. Anything that requires the approval of the select board, we debated 21 or 30 days notice. We heard from everybody that 30 days is what they wanted for the approval window on these major positions. And if the select board doesn't act within that period of time, it's automatically deemed to be filled, right? We've also made it very clear that if an administrator doesn't fill a position, the select board can go ahead and fill it. So you can't leave your treasurer collector, your assistant treasurer collector, positions, vacant. So that's what's going on inside of Article 6. Let's see, even though we've gone through in moving to Article 7, even though we think we've gone through and caught every place in the charter where there's gender specific language, we put a savings clause into section 7.5, which is titled Number and Gender. You can't just change he to another name, right? Because sometimes it's he, sometimes it's his, sometimes it's him, and it's all context of what the position is. And that there's no one global search replace that works as good grammar. So we think we caught them all, but in the event that we didn't, we have a savings clause. We also have in the charter a change to this definition of local newspaper, that it can include other things, the town's website, police and public works, temporary signage, social media, or other communication means that alone or in combination can reach the people of Natick. There's a minor addition to the boards and procedures governing multiple member bodies, which is to allow for, if the chair doesn't call a meeting, 1/3 of the members can. This has actually been a problem where the chair gets off of a committee and the committee hasn't reorganized. The committee can't meet. The committee doesn't meet. And we actually have had one committee went out of business that way. And another one didn't meet for over I believe 18 to 20 months, the Audit Advisory Committee. And then the last one that we're looking to fix is under vacancies. We have this provision in the charter, it's in 710, called Notice of Vacancies, that says whenever a vacancy occurs in any town agency or in town employment, and that includes the compensated full-time people, that or by the expiration of a fixed term, you think you're going to get a vacancy, you have to advertise the job. And we actually think that for people who are, working, let's say in the Department of Health, in the Department of Assessing, or the Comptroller's Office, or Treasurer Collector's Office, you name it, the Community Development, if they're doing a good job, we actually have this language in the charter that we don't comply with anyway, which we're supposed to go post their job. So what a great way to you'd be getting a great review that says, we really like what you're going to do. We want to give you a raise. It's but hold on, because we're going to advertise your job to the world for at least 10 days to see if anybody better shows up. So we actually have this we try to modify that this stuff, Notice of Vacancies, is really only for the volunteer committees and boards to try and make sure that whenever there's an opportunity to serve on one of these volunteer committees, it's opened up, to the public, and you invite more people in. So that's the overview.
Wow. You have been very, very busy.
And every one of these things is, like I said, it will pass, is like a separate consideration of town meeting. Like it, and if you like it, it goes into the framework of the act. If you don't like it, it's left out.
Yeah. I know I've got some questions, but I see Brinley's got her hand up. So let's start with you, Brinley.
Thanks. I have a ton of questions, but I would like to start with just a very simple one and then allow others. You've used the term special act a bunch of times, and even though I've done my homework since we're recording this and being able to share it with other people, I would love it if you would explain exactly what special act means, explain the timing, and explain what happens if changes are needed afterwards. Thanks.
So the first of all, special act. It's distinguished from the general laws which apply to throughout the Commonwealth. A special act is basically a home rule petition that comes out of a town meeting that goes to the legislature and says, in our instance, please, move something through Beacon Hill that accomplishes these changes. It is the literal text of the special act. The legislature does not get the rights to make wholesale changes to it. The town of Natick has had several of those over the course of time. The most recent one that affected the charter was in 1995, when we had a special act to go from a 3-person select board to a 5-person select board. So that had to pass town meeting. Then it had to go to Beacon Hill. Beacon Hill had to enact that special law, and then it came back to the voters of Natick for a yes/no vote. And that's pretty much be the same thing here. The timing would be, if this passes, or any of it passes, fall town meeting, the special act would go to the legislature by the beginning of December. And the way it is worded, it is any general local election, state election, or earlier special election that is called, that could where the voters could consider the special act. Hope that answers the question.
It did, but what happens once we've gone through the legislature? What happens if we need to make a change after that? Do we have permission to just change ourselves in town meeting, or does it have to go all the way back to the legislature again?
Great question. Anything that is passed by special act, right? And then let's say, pick a number of years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you don't like it, right? That can be changed. That can be changed by the more familiar 2/3 vote of town meeting and subsequent ratification by the voters, unless it touches one of those prohibited food groups of the composition, method, election of and term of your legislative body, your select board, or your town manager. Those are things that you cannot do by the 2/3 route. But anything else that you have do by special act, you can revise it. You can revise it later at the local level. You're not stuck with it forever.
Thank you. I do have other questions, but I'd like to give other people time, so I'll put myself back in the queue. Thank you.
Okay, I'll weigh in with just a process question, I guess. You had mentioned, Paul, in at least a couple of cases, general counsel had noted something that was in our document that they hadn't seen anywhere else. You also were talking at one point about public notification. We don't have local newspapers anymore. I'm curious what kind of conversations your team had with folks outside, either other towns, to kind of compare best practices. What can we learn from other charters and bylaws? Also, specifically on the public notification, I know the communications director for the town is trying to do a lot about improving the number of channels and ability to have a broader swath of town residents feel like they're in the loop on things. Although I swear some of these people seem to pride themselves on being out of the loop, but that's another topic. But anyway, if you could just talk generally to what were you relying on for kind of sources of information and input and so forth?
So the special counsel that we selected has about, I think he's over 35 years, maybe even 38 years experience as town council to town meetings, as city council to cities, as do other people in the law firm, and also has been a sitting member of the select board in Sherburne for 10 terms. He currently still sits on that board. And we kind of like the combination of someone who has practical experience working in a select board and understands how stuff has to work. It also has a broad number of communities that they've represented over the years and currently still do. Most of our input came through special counsel and his assistant counsel. But we also got, language from, other, charters and bylaws. But the issue of trying to wrestle with how to communicate to people, everybody's got this issue. The thing we're concerned about primarily is at some point in time, right? Somebody might litigate it that may already be there, that there is no newspaper of general circulation in the town, so that when you call a meeting, not saying it would be me, person X with 9 other friends gets a 10 taxpayer lawsuit to say you couldn't do this because you didn't follow the general circulation of the town. We actually think that this is it's an important fix.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you for that. Others? Brindley, you want to go to your next question? I know I'm not seeing other hands here yet, but.
Sure. First, I will say a huge thank you for working towards gender neutrality. I personally feel strongly about that, and I'm very glad to hear that that was one of the things that you guys were working towards. So I will say thank you for that right off the bat. The next question I have is regarding the homework for town meeting attendance. Is that on your website? And is there a way we'll be able to see how that works and what that all is? And then I also have a question about the deputy moderator, the appointed by the moderator. So that means it's not voted on by town meeting or anybody at all. And then what happens since the language was, as I understood it, you said the language was not clear when we changed from election to appointment. So what happens in this meantime right now before approval of a special act for the position that the town clerk usually fills for the moderator?
Okay, Colleen. So yes, you can get a copy of the attendance analysis. It is being put into electronic form. The members that did it, did it with a pencil. It's basically pencil and paper computations and assembly of data going back, I believe, every town meeting, including special town meetings from 2010 through 2022. And we have scans of that information. Some of the notations on it need to be explained in a meeting, so we've asked them to clean that up so it's clearer and can stand more on its own. But yes, you can have access to that. On the deputy moderator, we actually went back and forth. Should this be an elected position? Should this be an appointed position? So first of all, the matter of election versus appointment, you could make it a townwide elected office, right? So that means somebody runs for moderator and somebody runs for deputy moderator. And presumably they would need to get along for the better functioning of town meeting, but there's no guarantee that that happens if it's elected on a townwide ballot. And one of the things that moderators are allowed to do under statute is they can appoint assistants to have the moderator run the meeting. That's not the same as appointing somebody to stand in place of the moderator. So the deputy moderator would probably be a principal assistant, because they would have the ability as an assistant. But the primary need for the deputy moderator is to fill the void if the moderator is not there or can't be there. And the language in our charter actually now is clear that the elected town clerk used to have the job of stepping in and presiding over town meeting in the absence of the moderator. The appointed clerk does not have that ability. That's that ability was not given to the appointed clerk. And it was very specifically omitted from the appointed clerk's job under the theory of having an appointee of the town administrator run town meeting might be ultimately, or not, might be at some points in time unhealthy. So what would we do now if the moderator wasn't there? Town meeting would need to pause and hold an election. We need to elect a moderator from the body. And you could do that. And you could leave the deputy moderator out of this so that, every time the moderator isn't there, the meeting has to, the representative town meeting members have to elect a moderator for that particular meeting. That, just chews up time. And we thought that would not necessarily be a good thing to do. So we thought the best fix was a deputy moderator.
So I understood all of that, but my curiosity question was that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
My question was that if we have that gap right now, and this change of creating a deputy moderator appointed by the town moderator is a special act, is a part of the special act, and so has to go to legislature. And so we have no idea really, could that take a year or 2 years? And is there something that we can do that's a little bit more immediate fix for this?
Theoretically you could. We've been advised that as long as you keep controversial stuff out of your special act, the stuff that there is opposition to, not just on Beacon Hill, but opposition from any group like civil service that doesn't want to go out of business. If you have special acts to get rid of civil service, there are people who lobby Beacon Hill say don't do that. As long as you keep your charter changes to the non-controversial level, the expected date of enactment of this is somewhere in June or July of 24. And then it becomes an issue of whether it's on the November state election or an earlier special election, or could even go on the state primary in September. But that's the estimated timing.
Thank you for that. Can I keep going? I have another question.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm not the moderator. Doug is.
Let me just interject with one, Brindley, and then you can continue. I think, Paul, you had said that one of the things you're also looking for is the extension of term of the committee.
Yes.
Is that right? How, do you foresee how much more time you need, or what's that?
1 year.
1 year. Okay. What's the parts that you haven't gotten to, or
outside of certain focused elements of Article 3 of the bylaws on town meeting procedure, where we focused right in on the move the question thing, and also on special counsel just asked about how we call specials. We focused in on that because we're double the length of the requirement in the general law. Other than that, we haven't gone through the bylaws.
No.
And it's a bit because we didn't get them until the third week of August.
Oh, that's right. You opened with it. I apologize. Yeah. Okay. Back to you, Brindley.
Thanks. That was actually one of my questions.
Oh, actually, one quick second. I see Paul Joseph's got his hand up, and and Martin as well. If you wouldn't mind deferring to the two of them, and then we'll go back to you, Brindley. So, Paul Joseph.
Good morning. Thanks. Just a quick question, just procedurally, Paul. I don't understand the town meeting rule. You mentioned that town meeting members would have to elect sort of a presiding moderator if the moderator's not able to run it. Who facilitates the election of that? Like, how does that work?
Well, that's another good question. It's often in some communities done by council. And I believe that don't quote me on this, but I believe it's a statute in the general laws governing, town meetings. And there are some town meetings that do that they elect their moderator. But it's usually it is, from what we've heard is that in practice, this issue of having to elect a moderator doesn't come up very often, but in practice, when it does, the town council actually runs the meeting to do the election so that all the members then, vote for somebody who's going to be the moderator.
Gotcha. Thanks. And then, I know we, I publicly expressed a difference of opinion with special counsel on the timing of a special act. Here we are in mid-October, and a very, what I consider non-controversial request of the legislature to change our alcohol seating requirement that passed town meeting last fall still hasn't had its hearing by the legislature. Based on what, do you think this would actually be heard and approved by the legislature by June or July, if we can't get something as simple as taking away a seating requirement for a liquor license?
We'd have to ask him, that question. He's.
I did publicly, and his answer to that is, I know people and I've worked on the Hill before, while proclaiming he wasn't a lobbyist. I was very dissatisfied with his answer, and I'm concerned about the lack of clarity on that. We can't predict what the legislature is going to do. So to put a timeline out there without context, right? But you're stating a hypothetical. My concern is just when we're relaying this information, let's be clear about the fact that this is an uncertainty. Because that to me is this is I agree with pretty much everything you guys want to do. I disagree with the process, but I've been very frustrated by the half communication or the translucent communication of some of these details. And so when I just want to be very clear, when we're making statements, especially at a town meeting, that we can't, just because it can doesn't mean it will. And we have some pretty good examples of how the legislature has let us down profoundly over the last couple of years, and they're busy and they're still catching up from COVID.
What we can, ask him, he's not a lobbyist. He's actually, a very experienced municipal counsel who actually once was the attorney. Actually, he worked as the attorney for 3 speakers of the House. Therefore, and he knows the process for special acts, and it's in the totality of all that experience. He gave it his answer. It's not my answer. I outside of Mr. Linsky and Ms. Spilka and Ms. Rausch, I don't know anybody on Beacon Hill. So I defer to him.
Hey,
meaning Mr. Durensis.
Paul, excuse me, wanted to be mindful. Did you say you have a hard stop at 10 o'clock? Is that?
Yeah, I actually had major knee surgery earlier in the summer, and my physical therapist moved my appointment. So, but I've probably got time for 1 or 2 more, and if that's okay.
All right. Well, I wanted to make sure I wasn't remiss in thanking you again. I know one additional question I've got, and then I know Brinley's still got more. And Martin had his hand up and then he lowered it. So we'll.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know how it got lowered. I still have.
Oh, if I could just ask one more question. Tomorrow night's public forum, how would you contrast what will happen there versus what you've given us today? Are we just the beneficiaries of kind of the pre-show, or would we be learning even more if we look to attend that forum? Or
I think you're going to learn more if you attend that forum, because I think the the various text should be up. We've got a couple more of these amendments that have to be gone through the finance committee, but then but I think that the forum is also longer, right? Mm-hmm. And it's also in person, so there should be hard copy of documents if you wanted to take a look at them. I can't promise that, but I'm hopeful that there will be.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, Martin, I know you had a question.
Mine really feeds right off of that last answer, because I was going to ask about getting the actual text of what's being proposed. I know the FinCom has I've tuned in off and on to the FinCom meetings. It's kind of excruciating. It's gone on and on, but I understand the complexity of trying to get all this stuff to work together. So I guess it makes sense. But they do have one more meeting scheduled, I guess, tonight.
This evening.
And then presumably they'll have a final recommendation. So the recommendation did not get into the Finance Committee recommendation book, which went out electronically on Friday, and which people should get in the mail today. So I assume there's going to be a supplement that's going to provide all of that recommendations coherently, so they don't have to give it to us piecemeal. So do you anticipate that the FinCom's going to provide all that in a supplement that people are going to get fairly soon before town meeting?
Yes, that's the goal. I've been working with Linda on that. The plan is a supplement. There are 3 motions under the a warrant article for the special act that they have not heard. There are 3 others that they did hear and voted favorable action on, where town council had a wording tweak. And so they have to like reconsider those 3 that they already voted. All of the others, they've actually voted favorable action on, and they voted favorable action on all of the bylaw articles except for I believe there's one that will be back in front of them this evening.
Okay, good. So we should look forward to a supplement arriving a few days after our main body of the Finance Committee.
And at some point, a report from the CVRC with the same kind of information inside on the table at town meeting or on the moderator's Google Docs drive, wherever the moderator puts that stuff.
Good. I see Cindy's got her hand up. Brenda.
And then I probably have to go.
Okay.
I just want to say, as a relatively new resident of Natick, I am so impressed with the work that you did, and going back through all of that, and it just makes me feel very good about being a Natick resident. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. So a lot of I've had a lot of hardworking colleagues on this on the committee.
I can do one last real quick one. I hope it's quick. So when you were talking about the changing of the majority during town meeting, were you saying that it would be the majority of attendance in the moment? Is that what you meant by that? Where you got to 82 to 83, or
No.
would there just be it would set change?
So let's suppose, let's just use some illustrative math, right? It's just purely illustrative. We have 180 authorized town meeting seats, right? We have, let's just call it 15 chronic vacancies in precinct number 1. So that means we may have 165 seats that are filled. A majority of those 165 seats would be 83 people.
So what you're saying is you would just change it to 83 people, and that would be it. Instead of it being 91, it would further moving forward always be 83.
No, because the number of vacancies changes, Brindley.
Right. If for some reason there were no more vacancies in precinct 1, and you had 180 filled seats, the majority would be 91.
Gotcha. So it changes every town meeting, or it changes every year, because we only elect every year. So fall and spring will be the same for the year, because we're going on those.
It could actually
if somebody dies or moves away, then the position is vacant.
Right. And then until it's filled either by appointment or by caucus. So you could actually you could start a town meeting with some vacancies that actually get filled during the course of that meeting, and so the first night of town meeting, the quorum might be one number, then another one it might be, it's no longer 83, it's 85. But
so does that then become the first order of business every night, determining what the quorum is?
That's a moderator's job, in working with the clerk. And that's part of the reason for putting it. It kind of works in conjunction with making the moderators supervise or have oversight, if you will, in the appointment of vacancies and the running of caucuses. There's another reason too, which is to make them independent of an appointed clerk who works for an administrator. But they kind of work in conjunction that way, where the moderator would know what the quorum is, what the quorum requirement is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you
Very
for
much
that.
for your time.
And
Right.
thank you again, Paul, very much.
Thank you, and hopefully everybody can come tomorrow evening, and if you can't, thank you. This has been a preview, if you will, Doug. So
Yeah.
Your coffee with a purpose gets the trailer. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Absolutely.
We'll get all the
All right.
cliffhangers.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Paul.
Paul. And
Bye-bye.
Donna, I know you're still on the call and being mindful of your voice with your head cold, but do you have anything that you want to add on top of all of Paul's remarks? Or?
No, I just want to invite you all to the forum, and it won't be an exact redo of what this was, but there'll be more, I think, detailed information. You'll have the opportunity to meet the people on the committee, which I think, and hear from them and their insights. And not all of what we are putting forth was with, I mean, some of it included very vigorous discussion. So you'll have the opportunity to hear some of the nuances in the thinking of this CBRC also. So I urge you to come to that forum, and there will be refreshments served. It'll be also available on Zoom, recorded for future viewing. And I just want to thank you for having Paul here, and for giving the CBRC the opportunity to give you a small primer on this, because as you can see, it's very complicated and very detailed, and it's a lot of work for people to go through. So I just really thank you for providing this opportunity. And my voice is just terrible, so I'm not going to stay on the line, but please don't take that for a lack of interest.
That's fine, Donna. Take care of yourself, and hopefully we might not see you tomorrow night. Maybe Zoom. Don't come if you're contagious. But yeah.
Well, I actually went to urgent care. I was tested. I don't have COVID. I don't have the flu. You hopefully will see me, but I'll be wearing a mask.
Yeah. Okay. Good.